What's up, Devy Peoples? Kyle and Eric back. Kyle, how you feeling, man?
Not great.
What's the matter, buddy?
The Vols let me down.
Yeah, I know. There's been a lot of that this season so far, hasn't there, my friend?
Yeah. At least I'm not an Alabama fan. That kind of seems worse at the moment. Although they still won their game.
These are the weeks where I'm glad to have no allegiance to any team at all because I just don't care what happens, except for as long as guys score points and my fantasy teams don't suck. That's what I care about. Oh man, lots of good football again this week. I think a lot of disappointing football too. Like not just Tennessee and Alabama, but some quarterbacks we like were pretty crappy. Some more horrendous injuries to the guys we like. I mean, every useful tight end that's not Ja'Tavion Sanders or Brock Bowers is now injured. Yeah, man, I don't know. Have you dodged the injury bug?
I was never able to get Bowers or Gadsden, so I'm good there.
Man.
I don't think any of my guys have gotten injured yet. Gabe Ervin is out for the season now. He wasn't even doing that great, so he was on my bench, but he's on IR now.
I mean, I feel for the man. For fantasy, I don't care.
He had a decent week this week. He was getting close to 15. I mean, he was getting there. He just Nebraska looked a lot better after they benched Jeff Sims. So I was kind of hoping he'd do better throughout the rest of the season, but that's not going to be the case, obviously. I still have some Anthony Grant laying around, so maybe he'll do something.
I think I purged the Grant from my rosters in the offseason.
Those low claim leagues,
Yeah, he was a supplemental casualty for sure. Yeah, that's a lot of that going around, but some fun games too. So what was the highlight of the week for you?
I fell asleep because it started at 10 p.m. Eastern, but I watched the entire regular time of Colorado and Colorado State, and it was a very fun game. I picked Colorado in like the office pick-em pool thing, but I was rooting for Colorado State just because I figured that was the more fun ending. But
yeah, I mean, underdogs always fun to cheer for, right? And that game was some fireworks. Not just Torrey Horton, but Louis Brown went for 131 yards. Dallin Holker went for over 100. I mean, that's pretty cool. Sounds like the quarterback change has really helped loosen that offense up a little bit.
Yeah, Fowler Nicolosi looks a lot better than Millen has there, which is a bit of a surprise considering how much some of us liked Millen. But we'll talk about that, I think. We'll get there.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch that much myself. I watched the Florida State game for the most part. It was fun. I was scared when Travis got hurt, and he got better.
Hey, Thomas Castellanos, though, he had himself a day trying to.
It was fun to work, man. I was talking to Jared Wackerly about something. We were texting back and forth. He was like, "Oh, dude, that kid could run."
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
He was a one-man wrecking crew trying to keep that game close.
Yeah. What else was fun? I guess if we're gonna start dabbling into our top performers, not to start at the top of the list, but Malik Neighbors going off. You watch that one at all?
I was flipping in and out of that game. He was definitely pretty impressive. You gave me crap right after that game for picking Darius Taylor over Malik Neighbors in our start sits, and then hey, Taylor had like 30 himself, so
he did well as well. Yes, but I think Neighbors went for like 40 points. I think I won. I won in that league anyway. So it was okay.
I think we'll have to go back and like add up all the points each one of our picks got and see how we did last week.
Go head to head. At least maybe just measure the ones that we disagree on.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite ballers of the week?
Oh, Kadon Salter won me a league by himself. It was a league with some bonuses to it, so he ended up with 60 fantasy points for me.
Yeah,
I
that'll do it.
was mad about starting Samson Evans in that league. He got me like 6 points, and then I had Kadon Salter and Ashton Jeanty get 60 and like 35, so it didn't really matter who I started after I got those two. For reference, he had 344 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 10 rushes for 66 rushing yards, and a rushing score. He's a guy who's just immensely talented, was a former high 4-star recruit, if I remember correctly. Started his career at Tennessee, got kicked off the team for some boneheaded off the field stuff, and then transferred to Liberty and now has a starting job and is showing that he still has SEC athleticism and is just going to kick ass in the CUSA.
Yeah, I'd had some Salter last year and then dropped him after he was unable to win the job. So that was stupid of me. It looks like he's on that Bo Nix type trajectory at this point.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, Penix did his usual beat down, 473 yards, 4 tutties. Darren Granger from Georgia State with a nice game, 466 yards and 3 tutties.
Yeah, we're heavy on the quarterbacks this week. I got Dylan Gabriel, the Oklahoma quarterback, threw for 421 yards and 5 touchdowns against a pretty bad Tulsa defense. So he had himself a day, led me to another win by himself. Well, him and Jaden Daniels both had 45 in that league, catapulted me to a win.
Yeah, man, it's tough to win in the CFF if you don't have the elite quarterbacks, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just not always easy to tell before the season starts who that's going to be.
Yeah. Well, one other quarterback we have listed here who I think we probably saw coming at this point was Garrett Schrader, the Syracuse quarterback. Definitely knows how to use his legs and uses them well. Had 4 rushing touchdowns last week and rushed for like 190 rushing yards, I think. And like the last play of the game, he could have gone for a 75-yard touchdown, but it like the game was in hand, so he just like stopped after running like 40 yards, but he could have easily scored. It was one of those like naked boot plays that he is just so good at that naked boot. He makes it look like he doesn't have the ball. Yeah, it's crazy.
He is a good college quarterback, Schrader.
Yeah, for sure.
Fun. Dynamic. Who else you got?
I got 2 wide receivers. I got Torrey Horton, the Colorado State wide receiver, mixing it up against Travis Hunter a little bit until Hunter, got hurt in that game. But he had 16 receptions, 133 yards, and a touchdown on 17 targets. I think Horton really showed that he's an NFL player in the future, I think. He definitely has great hands. He had some really good catches near the sideline. And this offense is going to hum with Braden Fowler and Nicolosi at the helm. So I'm excited to see him throughout the rest of the season. And then my other wide receiver is out of Georgia State. You mentioned Darren Granger, the Georgia State quarterback. I'll mention his wide receiver 1, Robert Lewis, who had 6 receptions for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Stealing my thunder, dude. He was in the breakouts column.
I think I was going to put him there too. I know I have him on waivers. So
kind of the worst. You just like
get there.
My legs right out from underneath me.
Some people deserve to be in both columns. Okay. Who's your last one here?
You have Devin Neal on there. That's not for me.
You have Nate Noel.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Nate Noel. Yeah, casual 178 yards. Noel's a funny one because he was supposed to be the guy last year, and then wasn't really the guy. And then we were all like a little bit off of him this year, and he's doing what we wanted him to. He's been prolific over the past few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And as you mentioned, my last one, Devin Neal, wasn't expected to play and then was suddenly warming up and then did play. Ended up with 17 carries for just 89 yards, but got into the end zone 3 times and added a 59-yard reception.
Who did they play?
Nevada.
Right on, my man. Time for some breakouts, and we had some fun ones. I almost put Holker on there, but you put Holker on there.
You have to put Dallin Holker on there. He's the CFF tight end 1, and he's only played 2 games, and when everybody else has played 3. In this game against Colorado, he had 6 receptions, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Looked like a future NFL player, I think. Definitely has that type of athleticism. He's a little on the small side, but Dalton Kincaid was first-round pick, so at this point, I don't even know what to think about the size at the tight end position, but he was just incredible. If he's still on your waiver wire, I think he's 29% owned, so he could still be on your waiver wire. Drop the bank, I think. He's an anchor tight end for CFF, I think.
Yeah, and he's a guy we were high on coming into the offseason, too. I think we had him as a top 10, top 12 type tight end, and that is panning out. So, young man, we talked about already, Braden Fowler-Nicosi, CSU, 383 yards, 3 tutties, 3 interceptions. But you know what? I'll take that. I'll take the 3 interceptions.
The thing about Fowler-Nicolosi in this offense compared to Clay Millen is that he's willing to take the shot. I think Clay Millen's ADOT was like 3, and Fowler-Nicolosi's in this game starting was like 7.5. So definitely pushing the ball down the field a little more. But this offense does still thrive on those short area passes to, Horton and Ross Simmons and Holker. They just do so well with the ball in their hands. But, adding that downfield threat is just going to make this offense even better. And I think I want every piece of this offense I can get going forward, especially once they get into conference play where they'll be matched athletically with their opponents.
And Nicolosi, a true sophomore from what I can see, unless he transferred in. So that's exciting. It's got a lot of football to play at the college level. And again, like, I love it when a guy comes in and elevates the offense, right? Like, Horton was fine either way, but like Horton was the offense with Millen, and having 3 guys over 100 yards. Yeah, it's Colorado. The defense is a little bit of a sieve. But nonetheless, that's still –
they're going to play other sieves when they play, Air Force and all these other Mountain West teams that play suspect defense. Nevada is a horrible pass defense, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. And then Robert Lewis, the aforementioned, who went for 220 yards. And that wasn't his first big game this season either, but, he's showing consistency. And that's another level of production. And it was explosive plays.
No, he's been a bit of a target hog. I think he's up near 8 to 10 in all the first 3 weeks, even if the production wasn't there. And I think the Georgia State wide receiver 1 is somebody that's worth targeting. So obviously Darren Granger is a good fantasy quarterback. He's throwing for 300 yards a game. You want his wide receiver 1. And it seems that Robert Lewis has separated himself. So definitely a guy that is breaking out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a guy we've been high on all season, LJ Martin, player from BYU, true freshman, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions, getting all the work for BYU
against Arkansas.
Yeah,
like they weren't playing a scrub team. They trusted the freshman to lead the way against Arkansas, and he led them to a victory. And this is a team. Yeah, this is a team that wants rushing the ball to be their identity, and this is a team that doesn't and shouldn't trust Keaton Slovis to throw the ball often. So I think LJ Martin is going to have a hell of a season, and going forward into next year and the year after that, I think he'll be very, very good for CFF. I mean, this is the same staff that made Tyler Algier a top 10 fantasy running back in college. So
yeah. And an NFL draft pick, and Martin might be on that trajectory. I don't know how athletic he is, but certainly prolific in high school and seems to be
not as athletic as Algier. I mean, Algier was a freak of nature, but Martin definitely brings some receiving chops that Algier didn't have.
He was a freak, but he ran like a 4.6 or something. He wasn't fast. That's why.
Yeah, but he was huge.
He was big. Yeah, he was big for sure. And another guy that we liked coming into the offseason, I've already dropped.
Yeah, I almost picked him up in that league. You dropped him. I was so close to pulling the trigger.
Well, you should have.
Yeah, I think I still can. We
Yeah,
can outbid
probably
each other
bragging
this week.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are going to look at that like a fluke, but we had reason to believe the offense was going to flow through him this offseason. And I don't know, because the ball's been going other places. I do think he's the best player there, but we're talking about Ricky White, UNLV, a guy that had a little mini breakout last year, but not like this. 12 receptions, 165 yards. That's a game.
Yeah, I believe it's Jacob DeJesus is the other wide receiver, the FCS transfer, who's done pretty well, gotten some targets for himself too. I definitely think it's a 2 wide receiver offense though, so one of those guys is going to go off every week, and it's probably going to be White more often than not, I think. And I think I can excuse some of his past performances because they played some pretty tough teams. I mean, Michigan was their week 2 opponent. I don't remember who they played in week 1, but even this game was against Vanderbilt, so that's pretty impressive for a G5 wide receiver.
Yeah, G5 wide receiver by way of the P5 4-star recruit. So I had one last guy that I threw in there. He's a different flavor than all these other guys too, and that is Oklahoma freshman Nick Anderson in the blowout against Tulsa. Not a terrible team. Catches 3 passes for 3 touchdowns and 120 yards, averaging 40 yards per reception. Is this going to happen next week? Hell no. But I mean,
no,
it's nice.
This is fool's gold if you're playing like CFF only, but if you're playing yeah.
But if you're playing C2C, watching a guy shatter his year 1-0 in one game is kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and we think
both this was Arnold all garbage time. I'm pretty sure Arnold was the quarterback for all 3 of these, but
I think you might have a promising future with Arnold, Anderson, Headaway. Might be the kind of Oklahoma team we've been wanting for CFF and for Devy for a long time and not getting. So, what do you got out here?
I got another G5 wide receiver. I got Colin Lacey out of South Alabama. They upset Oklahoma State and just killed them, honestly. I think that final score was like 35-7 in favor of South Alabama. So good on them and good on their wide receiver 1, Colin Lacey, who had 5 receptions for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has been a rack machine this year. I believe he's averaging 13 yards after the catch per reception this season. So just, catching the ball and making plays with the ball in his hands, that's the kind of guy that a quarterback's going to trust. And the other big news out of South Alabama, which is disappointing for many, Devin Voisin, the wide receiver 2 in that offense, tore his ACL in this game and will be out for the season. So rest in peace to him. That's always sad to hear. But one door closes, another one opens, and Colin Lacey is going to be even more prolific for the rest of the season, most likely. And then we'll stay in the G5 real quick, and I have Louisiana Lafayette quarterback Zion Chris gets in the game after Ben Woolridge gets hurt, and he is an athlete, and he showed that. 14 for 20 passing the ball, only 174 yards and 1 touchdown, but 6 carries for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is an athletics freak. He is a track level speedster, and playing quarterback with that kind of speed at the G5 level is a bit of a cheat code. So I'm excited to see what he can do for the rest of the season with Woolridge out for a little while. Maybe he won't even get the opportunity to give that job back.
Yeah. A couple more guys that I'd thrown in here. I think Nate Collum might be one of the most exciting breakouts in all of college football this week. Clearly playing with an elite quarterback, Nate Collum of UNC, who had been in a battle with Kobe Paysour for the slot snaps there. Well, looks like the battle's been decided to me. 20 targets, 15 receptions, 165 yards, a tutty. I mean, wow. Yeah. Everybody wanted Drake Mace wide receiver 1, and I think that's very fair because he is such a great quarterback. A lot of people thought it was going to be Devontae Walker. Obviously, he's not able to play because of the NCAA being stupid, but Nate McCollum is playing Georgia Tech transfer, and he definitely seems to be May's favorite target.
And then my last guy here is TCU running back Amani Bailey, 23 carries, 126 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 receptions. Just another big game for Bailey. I believe I had him as a breakout last week, so just cementing that status for us. Definitely a guy I think you should pick up. I think he fits into that Kendre Miller type role, and Miller was a top 20 back last season. And I think they're going to pass the ball even less because Chandler Morris is worse than Max Dugan. So I think more runs equals more opportunity for Amani Bailey. And I think he'll have a great CFF season at TCU.
Yeah, every week the carries have been tilting more in his favor and more away from Trey Sanders. Trey Sanders still getting the short yardage and goal line work.
Yeah, that is the bummer.
Yeah, it's a bummer. So I think you're going to have a little bit of a capped upside from Bailey. He's not going to have those, 3 touchdown, 40-point weeks. But I think he might have a nice floor here of, 12 to 14 points with some spike weeks as he really goes off.
Yeah, he's a guy. He's a guy who can break one from like 30 yards out. So
can and does, Yeah. One more guy that I didn't put on the show sheet, but one Nate Johnson of Utah, who again playing in relief of injured Cam Rising, and he's been getting a few snaps here and there. And this week he seems to have gotten a substantial amount of snaps. And this is a guy that we know for his rushing ability and certainly did rush well. 16 carries, 71 yards, a touchdown, but also threw the ball pretty well. 13 of 21 for 193 and 1 against Webster, sure, but also had 75% completion rate against Florida, which seems to be a really good defense this year. So maybe this is a kid that is a true dual threat, not just a rushing threat, and a guy that we should be paying more attention to than we are.
Yeah, I think my thoughts on Cam Rising, so I don't think this is Nate Johnson's job by any means, but definitely possibly going forward into next year if Rising were to go pro.
That's more of a Devy take than a CFF take. But Nate Johnson, true sophomore, plenty of football to play.
Maybe he switches to running back like another former Utah quarterback.
But this one can throw the ball.
That's true.
Oh, right. And then, sorry, my friend, we also have our section to deal with here. The busts. What do you got? Kyle? You want to lead it off?
Wait. Oh.
Any faster than that.
It took so long to load after I pressed play.
We suck. We need a soundboard. I have a soundboard. I can pick it up.
Well, my first bust, I mentioned it in the intro. Tennessee, just the entire offense, except for Brew McCoy. I think Brew McCoy turned in a 20-point performance. Couldn't get going on the ground like many expected them to do. I mean, Jalen Wright looked good in this game. Definitely ran with some power, had some plays where he looked like he was stacked up and then added 6 more yards. So this was a game that didn't make me feel good about Jalen Wright for CFF, but made me feel good about Jalen Wright for Devy. I don't know. But Jabari Small didn't look good. Dylan Sampson didn't get the ball at all, which was weird. And the offense as a whole just looked bad. Squirrel White didn't really get open much. Dante Thornton is bad at football, and Ramel Keaton is fine. But, yeah, one of these wide receivers needs to step up. The offensive line needs to play better. And Joe Melton could stand to do a little better, but I don't think this squarely rests on his shoulders.
And hanging all on him, which I can't really say for some of these other guys here. I mean, look, we had a long conversation about Devy quarterbacks this week. I said, look, Quinn Ewers, he's doing NFL football things. And you said, yeah, against Alabama, like he did last year. And I said, oh, well, we'll see this week. And you know what?
He didn't do NFL football things against Rice either, but he couldn't do it against Wyoming too.
It's Wyoming, 52% passing, 131 yards. I forget the yards per attempt, but it's 5 or 6. Really, low level, playing with probably 3 NFL wide receivers. I'm sorry, Quinn. It's over. It's not
JT
over,
Sanders
but
didn't even get a catch either. Like,
yeah,
how do you not
Ja'Tavion
get
Sanders
him
is
the
in this
ball?
section a little bit further down. 3 targets, 0 catches. What's up, Quinn?
What are we
What's up?
doing?
What are you even doing? And then another guy that we like, or that we both like, J.J. McCarthy. 143 yards passing against Bowling Green State University. 2 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. What's up, JJ?
I jinxed him. I was just talking about in that show last week. Oh, he's only thrown 6 incompletions on the season.
Well,
but
added a triple up interception to that.
I think his incompletion number is still pretty low because, I mean, interceptions don't hit the ground, right?
Yeah, man. Bowling Green State. I don't know. Like, how does this happen? He has been aggressive. He's been pushing the ball down the field, but I've watched a good amount of his film from this year already. We'll talk about some of that on the show. I think next week we're going to do a little Michigan, J.J. McCarthy film watch. And I feel like he slides it into some tight windows or like skates it over the hands of linebackers like pretty frequently. I think it probably has caught up to him in this one. Maybe he was getting a little too confident. But you know what? It's fun to root for a gunslinger, man. And I think JJ's got a little bit of that DNA in him. So it's going to happen. I'm more worried about Ewers for sure than
Quinn
JJ.
Ewers, by the way, still yet to complete a pass to the right side of the field, plus 20 yards. 0 for 4.
Interesting.
I think we need a tracker once he completes one of those passes.
While we're talking about my decimated tight end room, Benjamin Urasek, the great hope. 0 reception. I mean, he was like the last man standing at this point. Nothing. Him, JT. If you don't have Bowers right now and you didn't like waiver Holker, you're bumming.
Should have drafted Holker, but yeah.
Well, I drafted Benjamin Urasek and Luke Lachey.
Tanner Koziel?
Aronde Gadsden.
Tanner Koziel?
Tanner Koziel is still living until Brady Hunt comes back. Although last year they coexisted. They both played well.
And the thing about Koziel is last year his catch percentage was something like 50%, and it's up near like 80 this year. So
better.
Seems to be improved.
About that. Yeah, we should have just made a section that was called the tight end graveyard this week. We really lost. We missed an opportunity here.
Just like a bell ringing. Dum.
Benjamin
Urasek.
Gadsden, dead. Lachey, dead. Gosh, man. What else? Who am I missing? Oh, Conyers, done. Brady Hunt hasn't played the game yet this year. There's one more I'm missing too. Whatever.
Speaking of injuries, because I think it's important to bring it up. He's not really a bust this week, but he did get injured. Casey Thompson out for the season at FAU.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that one sucks.
That stinks. He was playing
that's
well.
It's gonna be rough for LeJontay Wester possibly, but hopefully he'll continue to go. I think Daniel Richardson is the backup, the former Eastern Michigan quarterback. So I think they'll be okay. Hopefully,
we'll see.
Crossed.
He's
no Casey Thompson.
No Casey Thompson. Got a couple other guys here. I'll rattle them off. Cedric Alexander. Not shocking. He didn't do well last week either, but 7 for 15. So he sounds like he's maybe more of a. You're not dropping him, but you're probably not starting him this year at all.
Yeah.
Barry Brown, 5 targets, 2 catches, 4 fantasy points. Kobe Paysor, 2 targets, 1 reception. Will Shipley, who has been as solid as any player in CFF this year, 6.5 fantasy points. This is rough. It's rough. You got some you want to talk about. Let's talk about a couple of your guys.
Yeah, I have a couple. Nathan Carter wasn't very awe-inspiring this week. 17 carries for 48 yards. 1 reception for 2 yards. Not great for the Michigan State running back. Jaron Bradley, the Texas Tech wide receiver, Still put up 8 points. I mean, 4 receptions for 40 yards, but not what we've come to expect for a guy being the wide receiver one in that offense. And then we talked about J.J. McCarthy. I'll bring up the RB1B for Michigan, Donovan Edwards. 9 carries for 50 yards, 0 targets. He's really made his money catching the ball. I think he had 9 targets in the first 2 games, but 0 targets in week 3. He's only averaging 9.1 fantasy points per game. How panicked are you about Donovan Edwards for CFF?
I'm not pleased. I only have a couple shares. I've been pretty high on him. I've been vocally high on him for the NFL, and I cut a Michigan game, as I was saying, and I'll throw up the Corum and the Edwards tape on our channel. And Edwards just didn't look great, right? That was UNLV too, and he didn't look great running the ball to me. So I don't know. How panicked are you?
I am not a Donovan Edwards bag holder, so it does not concern me. But if I was, I would be quite concerned.
I think I'm going to try to find some trade partners, honestly. It could still work out, but I think his rushing ability is just not explosive. He doesn't have good change of direction. His vision's fine, but I just don't know if he has like the athleticism to really react quickly enough, or maybe he doesn't see quickly enough, but he's always like lumbering into holes after they're, kind of passing him by. So not super excited about him at this point. I got more. Well, you got one more. You got Mr. K Barnes. How'd that go for you this week?
Oh, yeah. I forgot I stole him from you. Kavorian Barnes, an ugly one against Army. And, I mean, we talked about it last Thursday and during start sits. I felt fine about Barnes against Army because Army has been so bad against the run. But UTSA could not get anything going on the ground. He had 9 carries for 39 yards and a fumble, which put his fantasy point total at something like 1.5 in some leagues. So not very good.
Yeah.
I think the panic meter's pretty high on Barnes at this point.
Yeah, I wasn't that high on him. I mean, I thought he would do good just like as a system thing, but yeah, it's not great for a guy that you really expected to be like top 30 running back, if you were drafting him where he was going, or better. A couple of rough ones here. Donovan Smith, who, he's not a world beater, but I thought he was going to be good for CFF at least in that offense this week. 4 fantasy points as a Houston quarterback, 225 yards, but 6 sacks and 2 interceptions. Tough to be profitable starting that at your QB1 slot. Ohio, much hyped CFF star. Steve Bangura, 5.7 fantasy points. That is rough. And a guy we'll talk about shortly again here, Ollie Gordon.
Hopefully, Maction is better for Bangura. Hopefully.
I would expect it to be, but still, you were hoping he was going to at least be getting like targets in these games. And then Ollie Gordon, 3 carries, 12 yards, 2 receptions, 13 yards, 4.5 points. That is suboptimal, my friend.
Yep.
That's it. Are we done with that painful experience of reliving our busts?
I think let's be a little more painful real quick. We'll pour one out for all the guys who are out for the season. Luke Lachey out for the season.
I think it's Lachey.
Lachey, sure.
That's how the people on the TV say it.
Aronde Gadsden out for the season. Not as important, but Micah Bernard, Utah running back, out for the season. Devin Voisin, South Alabama wide receiver, out for the season. I don't think there were. Do you remember any other big ones that happened recently?
That's enough for me. I think I know we're missing.
Nebraska running backs Gabe Irvin and Ramir Johnson both out for the season now. That's a bummer for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it.
It's enough of it. That's enough. We can stop.
That's enough. No more pain.
No more pain. No more injuries, please.
Yeah.
Or may only my opponents. May only my opponents get injured.
Casey Thompson, man. As we mentioned. Your boy Eugene Wilson got hurt, but he seems to be fine. It sounds like he'll play again next week.
Yeah, I kind of wish, I know this is a weird thing to say, I wish he was a little bit more nicked up because I can't get any trades done for him. I've been trying.
Yeah.
Like offering good trades too. Like I offered someone for Eugene Wilson, Christ, what's the wide receiver 2 from Arizona? What's that kid's name?
Jacob Cowing.
I offered someone Cowing and like a 7th for Eugene Wilson, and it was like snap rejected. I thought that was decent.
I'd counter that.
Right?
I'd want a higher pick, but I would do that, I think.
I mean, I think that's pretty close. Like that's an NFL guy that you can play this year and a decent pick. Yeah, I would have gone up to like a 3rd pick in Cowing or a 2nd pick straight up, I think. But
it's tough.
Yeah, not ideal.
Well, speaking of guys who are dead for the season, we'll move to Dead or Alive, our next segment, which has to do with guys who are underperforming. And are they people that should stay on our rosters, or are they people who should be dropped? My first one is Samson Evans, the Eastern Michigan running back, who, much to my chagrin, has not taken the lion's share of the carries. I believe his carry numbers are like 10, 9, and 8 in the first 3 games. I was excusing it when it was against Minnesota, but this week they played another bad team, and he had 8 carries, which he turned into 89 yards. Had a fumble, but Eastern Michigan can't seem to score the football and doesn't want to seem to give Samson Evans 20 carries a game, even though he's averaging 6.5 yards per carry. Are we just hoping the coaches start giving him the ball, or are we moving on?
I'm not dropping him unless like I have a really good alternative, but I also haven't started him since week 1.
Yeah, I mean, we're still waiting on action. I think that's the hope with a guy like that, is that he turns in some good performances on Tuesday nights.
So my first one was Kobe Paysor. Did Nate McCollum kill him, or was this a fluke that Paysor was completely out of the game plan?
How bad was it?
It's 2 catches.
How many targets?
I might have been 2 targets, 1 reception. Hold on, I wrote it down. 2 targets, 1 reception. Pretty bad, man. I didn't check snap counts, but
yeah.
Unless there's an injury we're not hearing about.
That is tough. I mean, McCollum is a breakout, but he's a breakout in the fact that he didn't play weeks 1 and 2. So it's not like we can excuse this as like Paysor was ahead of him before this. But it seems like McCollum ate his lunch, to put it nicely. So maybe
are you dropping him?
Time to move on.
Giving him a week, or you're dropping him now?
I think it's a snap decision to drop him immediately. But, if one of these waiver guys is available and he's who you feel the worst about on your team, I don't fault you.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 3rd-year player. It's not like he's a sophomore. Very unlikely he has.
Okay, wait, hold on. I found it. He ran 43 routes. Nate McCollum also ran 43 routes. They tied for first.
One of them got 2 targets. So is that a matchup?
And the other one got 21. I don't know what it is.
Is that a matchup they're exploiting? So I'm not dropping him. I probably wasn't going to drop him. He's not a Devy asset at this point. So it's like, is he a in-betweener? Like, are you holding him for that 12 points a game ceiling that he's showing? It's kind of like, you probably have someone better to drop, but he's probably not on my roster next September, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely seems like him and McCollum are
The guys,
the
right?
two guys, yeah.
But they're like the same player, too, is the thing. I mean, Paceor's a little bigger, I think, but
do they have another player? Like, do they have somebody else who's a different build?
they got a senior that plays outside. They got the
JJ
four-star
Jones,
year.
Andre Green Jr. has been horrible.
Yeah.
And then it's like Nesbitt, and Morales, but there's no wide receiver. There's no wide receiver 3 that worries me. So I think Paceor's going to have some weeks. And if McCollum were to get hurt again, you're right back.
So that 12 points a game.
Something like that.
That's the thing. Like I'm just like, is that a guy that you need on your roster? Or is he, I think this is like a philosophical thing, or is he like, should he be a drop? If you don't have a 20 point per game ceiling out of a guy and they're not going to the NFL, I think philosophically, those guys are real easy to come by, you know?
Yeah, 9 targets week 1 and week 2 without McCollum. And then 2 targets with McCollum.
Yeah. All right. Moving along.
My next one is Arkansas State wide receiver Corey Rucker, who transferred to South Carolina last year, couldn't do anything there, and then transferred back to Arkansas State and has not put up the same kind of numbers he put up 2 seasons ago. He is currently averaging 5.2 points per game, has target numbers of 4, 10, and 6 in the first 3 games, but hasn't been a high ADOT guy, hasn't found the end zone, and Arkansas State, quite frankly, has been horrible.
I dropped Rucker after week 1.
Really?
Yeah. I only had him in high turnover leagues, right? Open waiver leagues, and I just didn't see it happening.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm holding him in the one league I have him, but it's a 24 teamer.
Yeah.
With nobody on waivers.
Or,
so.
If I had 1 claim a week, maybe I wouldn't have gotten to him yet, but I think I put in 7 claims that first week or something like that and just turned over a lot of my roster. He was gone.
Yeah, I mean, those 10 targets in week 2 sound a little appetizing, and he's still leading the team in targets this week with 7. They beat up on Stony Brook this week, but can't seem to get anything going. Doesn't seem to be catching the ball. I mean, week 2, his target number of 10 for week 2 was via Fantrax. PFF credits him with 12 targets. He caught just 3 passes.
It's probably a quarterback problem, but I don't know. Is he an NFL guy? Is he helping my team this year? I don't, unless they got like a freshman, I'm not stashing CFF players for next year. You know what I mean? Or unless they were like a superstar. So
yeah, he kind of was a superstar 2 years ago, though.
2 years ago, and then he had a pretty nasty injury and basically couldn't get on the field at South Carolina. Like a lot of red marks on the account. But who knows? These are the kind of guys that'll come out of the woodwork next year with a 12 target game and go for 1,000 yards on the season. So
yeah. JT Shrout, the quarterback there, also a former Tennessee quarterback, a la Caden Salter, but much concussed.
Much concussed. All right. My next guy is, in fact, Ollie Gordon. And what are you doing with Ollie Gordon? Is he like, are we rostering him as a Devy piece? Because he ain't doing it for CFF.
God, the team's so bad. Like, what do you expect him to do? I think it's tough to find anybody I want on Oklahoma State this year. I mean, their wide receivers, like Stripling's averaging like 10 and like Presley's averaging like 10, but like, do you want 10 points?
Yeah.
I don't think either of those guys are going pro if they're averaging 10 points. I don't think anybody on Oklahoma State is worth a dang.
Yeah. And he's got a couple like secondary stat points that are nice. Like he's actually got a really high elusive rating. I'm a really big fan of that. I found it actually correlates to NFL success directly and linearly. So he was at least like pretty. I'm looking for him now, and he's dropped off the first couple pages. But after
here's a stat, and it's probably indicative of how much we shouldn't like him. He had 12 yards on 3 carries this week. 11 of those yards came after contact against South Alabama. That's rough. I don't know if that's a him problem.
That's the offensive line more than
or
him,
an offensive line problem, but that is rough.
One or the other. It's a problem for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well taken. I'm trying to find. I can't even find him on the lucid rating. But, some missed forced tackle guys because he's now 94th.
Yeah, he led the team in attempts week 2. 9-8, and also was second on the team in attempts in week 1, but still under 10. This is like a 3-headed backfield where each of them get like 8 carries. So
yeah,
I don't think I want any of them for CFF. And if you can't separate from Elijah Collins and Jaden Nixon, I don't think I want you for Devy.
Yeah, the elusive rating's still pretty good, even though it's second page. It's second page in the same realm as guys like Braylon Allen, some other nice names on this, Roland Hemby, Marshawn Lloyd. So just, you don't have to have the highest number in that to be useful. All the really high numbers are guys with like 2 carries,
Yeah, so, I think Ollie Gordon's dead though.
Yeah, I think he's pretty dead. I'm probably trying not to drop him, but I'm not scared to if I needed the space. I haven't gotten that deep, but by week 10, he might be Oswego, homie. All right. You got a couple more here.
Yeah, my next one is Northern Illinois wide receiver Trayvon Rudolph, a guy who was super efficient in a low volume passing offense as a freshman, missed all of last year with an injury, and hasn't gotten it done once returning. In this game against Nebraska this week, 1 target, 1 reception, 5 yards, 35 pass attempts, and he definitely seems to be jumped by Kasper Rudkowitz.
Are you holding on to hope here?
I have one league where I kind of have to keep him on my roster just because I don't have enough drops, or enough ads, but I don't think you should be. The target numbers just aren't there. He's like 4th or 5th on the team in targets on an offense that doesn't throw the ball often.
Yeah, I dropped him last week, and the only shares I had.
That's a bummer, though. It's a guy I really liked.
Yeah, I had high hope, man. He looked great 2 years ago, but major injuries. Maybe he bounces back next year, but by that point, he's going to be like 22 or something. So,
yeah,
if he's not already,
big bummer.
So I got one more guy. Tennessee wide receiver Dante Thornton. Is there a chance he happens next year?
No, he's not good at football.
He sucks, right?
He is very good at running in shorts and very bad at playing football, it would appear. He tracks the ball very poorly, doesn't really attack the football at all either, which is concerning. My biggest concern about Dante Thornton in this Tennessee offense right now is why is he on the field?
Feel you, man.
It looks so bad that why isn't 2022 high 4-star Caleb Webb on the field at all?
Yeah, is he also
or
bad
Nathan
at football?
Leacock or all these high 4-star guys they've brought in? I think need to get a chance before Thornton does, but the staff is so infatuated with what Thornton could be because he's tall and fast, but doesn't seem to be good at the football part of things.
Yeah, it always worries me about the guys that aren't playing and how bad they are. But all right, he's on.
I do have one more.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. One more tight end position, Utah tight end Thomas Yasman, a guy who had some hype coming into the season. I hyped him up coming into the season. 2.7 points per game, 4 targets, 0 targets, and 2 targets. Caught both those targets for 15 yards this week against Weber State. And Brant Kuthi hasn't even played a snap yet.
Yeah, it's kidding. Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah. We kind of hyped him up that he might be. I mean, he's a guy who's super athletic like Kincaid, but
right.
Part of it is the offense isn't throwing the ball a ton. I mean,
well, and they have a receiver that doesn't suck.
Yeah, Mikey Matthews. Yeah,
true freshman.
And Muddy Parks, I think.
Muddy Parks. A couple
decent guards.
Yeah. I mean, I think Matthews is the guy if you want to roster a guy, but unless you think he's a Devy player, I don't need to roster a pass catcher from Utah at this moment.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Obviously holding Keithy, but
Keithy, for sure. Hoping he comes back, man. I mean, he's a kid that we thought could go to the draft 2 years ago, right? Like, seemed like a bad decision not to take that day 3 money at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still excited for what this Utah team can be with Keithy and Rising healthy, but I don't know. They still have to get healthy. It's the biggest thing. But are we dropping Yasmin, or are we waiting for the quarterback to get healthy?
I assume there's better people to drop, but I don't care if you have to. But I do feel like tight ends can come like out of nowhere, like later in their careers. So I think you're more likely to wind up regretting that than you are regretting dropping some of these, 4th year, 5th year guys.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, 20 attempts, 24 attempts, and 22 attempts. So like they're not doing anything through the air, and part of that's obviously because they don't have their star quarterback. So I don't know. Willing to hold him in limited waivers, I think.
Yeah, me too. You want to do? Are they for real?
I think it's time. Are they for real?
Are they for real? Maybe. So.
Maybe.
Do you want to do? Are you interested in talking?
May chance.
Perchance. Are you interested in talking about Monagai, or should I?
You can start. Give me your take.
So Kyle Monagai, or as I like
to
call him,
Money Guy.
Money Guy. So look, he's been ripping it up since really the first week. I think the hesitation there, at least I'll speak for myself, has been that he was not supposed to be the starter. It was supposed to be Sam Brown, who's very athletic, who I like a little bit. And I'm trying to find, is it Monagai?
Monongai.
There's
an N before the G.
Monongai. Here is his game log so far this year. 14 carries, 49 yards. Sure. 28 carries, 165 yards. 16 carries, 143 yards. 2 of those were against P5 teams, although questionable ones at that. But, dude, he's getting volume, And is this one of those things where maybe he doesn't give the job back and Sam Brown comes back?
Sam Brown is back. Sam Brown has played like 10 snaps in both the last 2 games.
Is he like working back, or is it just I guess that's my question. Is it Monongai's job?
I don't know enough about Rutgers. I think it's Monongai's job.
I think it's Monongai's job at this point.
I think the issue though is he's beat up on Temple and Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
I think are 2 very bad rush defenses. And like next week they get Michigan. I would not start Kyle Monongai against Michigan. He is not that real.
You don't want to start anyone against Michigan. But look,
I think maybe it's a guy. Travion Henderson against Michigan, but
would you? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyways, I think the good thing about a guy like Monongai is that you know when to start him, right? If he's playing a G5 team, if he's playing a weak P5 team, he's probably going to pile up carries and yards. If he's playing an elite offense, leave him on your bench. Easy decision. So
yeah. Let's real quick. Their schedule. They get Michigan this week, and then Wagner. You can start them against Wagner. Wisconsin, Michigan State, Indiana, Ohio State,
Most of those aren't that
Iowa,
scary,
Penn
though.
State, Maryland.
Ohio State, they're probably not running the ball, but
Or Iowa or Penn State.
or Iowa
Maryland's
or Penn
probably
State.
better.
Maryland's fine. Michigan State's certainly not scary. Wisconsin's defense isn't good this year. Not like the way it usually is.
Yeah, but they're probably still bigger than Rutgers.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. So is he for real? I don't know. He's going to get volume. That's what we can say.
Yeah, I think the volume's real. I don't think he's a special talent.
Special talent, and he's on a crappy team for the most part. All right. Thomas Castellanos. Was that me or was that you? Where did this come from?
I don't know, but I'll take him. I love Thomas Castellanos. The redshirt freshman quarterback for Boston College almost led them to the upset against Florida State, basically by himself. And he's, I think, coming out of high school, who was it? I think it was Felix Sharp said that Thomas Castellanos is the best quarterback rusher he's seen in high school. And I think that's fair. He was a superb athlete and still is. I love that he won the job at Boston College, albeit not immediately, but eventually. And he's not going to give it up if he's balling out against Florida State, you know?
Yeah, man.
He's a guy who, honestly, I would have loved to see more at UCF because I think they're a little better at utilizing a rushing quarterback. But I think his talent is for real. I think he's a hell of a rusher, and I don't think he's a bad passer. He has not looked like a bad passer yet.
Yeah, well, dude, Florida State's defense is legit. They got in his face in that game over and over again. He made some nice throws, made some mistakes too, but like, gosh, you're playing a vastly superior team as your first year as a starting quarterback with inferior talent around you. I'm in on him, honestly. He's a guy that, like, I think I put him in the waiver list, but he ought to be, because he's a guy that, like, if he's doing this now, maybe next year he gets a Zay Flowers type guy and just goes nuclear. You don't know. Could happen. There's a lot of things that could happen to improve his situation.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Okay. I threw Darius Taylor in here. Do you think Darius? This is like Darius Taylor.
I think that's done and dusted. He is for real.
For real, but is he an NFL talent? That was my question.
Oh, I have kind of just been clicking in and out of Minnesota games, so I haven't really totally evaluated him for that yet. I think coming in, if I remember correctly, there were some interesting stats about him.
I read that he ran a 10.4 to 100.
That's legit.
Or 10.6. That's legit.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but that's it's not a joke.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up some of my freshman stuff. I do remember like thinking he was pretty good as a high school senior. So I think there's something there. I'm obviously not willing to go like all the way off the deep end. He's played like 2 games as a starter, and I haven't had the chance to watch them, but I lean yes.
I saw the 100-meter thing and that first breakout game, and then I have a league where I have one claim a year, and I was like, I'm gonna use it on him because I'm not like a superstar team there. So
I think
like
that's
there's probably
right.
there's better CFF players I could have grabbed, but I think he's got Devy potential as much as any freshman's going to break out that wasn't drafted. Like that league's all sharps. They didn't let many highly recruited guys fall through the cracks. So
I think that's a smart pickup.
Yeah.
And a good use of your. So as a high school senior, he had 268 carries, for 2,450 yards and 36 touchdowns, and was also a wrestler in high school. And
I love the wrestler, though, honestly. Probably get some hand technique, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
We have two guys left
he
here.
looks really good between the tackles. So I think that's
catching
something
passes, it's all adding up for me. All right.
Yeah, one thing I have written down, though, is he was listed at 195 coming in. So
they're listing him over 200 now. So
okay.
Yeah. All right. Caden Salter.
Caden Salter, yes, absolutely. 100%.
Like, for real, is he an NFL player or is he a college superstar?
He has the attributes, the physical
Malik
attributes
Willis.
of an NFL player. I don't really think he gets there, but he's gonna freaking kill it in the CUSA schedule.
Yeah. Do you think he could be a top? These aren't even really that many Salter highlights. I'm gonna shut him off. Do you think he's a top 10 CFF QB for like CFF Dynasty?
Yes. I think any quarterback who could get 20 carries a game should be up there, and I think he's one of the ones who will do that and will be efficient with them.
Yeah. All right, cool. And one last guy talked about Sean Williams, Iowa running back, was the guy last year, kind of lost his job to Caleb Johnson, who's been terrible this year. But Sean Williams got the job back, maybe?
Kamari Moulton stole the red zone touches.
I mean, I guess this is a twofold. Is the Caleb Johnson dream done?
Yes.
And is LaShawn Williams the guy?
Caleb Johnson is toast.
He sucks, huh? He's athletic. Sad to me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, 12 carries, 145 yards with a long of 53. So that means you take that away, he still had 11 carries, 90 yards for LaShawn Williams against WMU, but it's not like it was a FCS team either.
Yeah, I think he's probably the guy. The one issue I have is the freshman, Kamari Moulton, gets 8 carries and 2 of them go for touchdowns. So he's kind of stealing that.
Interested in Moulton?
I think LaShawn Williams is like Amani Bailey, and maybe Moulton is the Trey Sanders.
The Trey Sanders, yeah.
But no, I think it'll probably be LaShawn Williams. I'd love to see them. It's crazy. I'd love to see Iowa, of all teams, run the ball a little more.
Yeah, they can't pass it, so.
Hey, they scored 41. That's way over the 25 that Brian France
way over the 20. Have you seen the GIF with the 25-yard?
Yes.
So fun.
But sadly for me, they scored in like the fourth quarter with like 2 minutes left, and backdoor covered my Western Michigan plus 28.
Nothing is worse than that. It's so frustrating.
They could have just taken a knee and they scored another touchdown because they want Brian France to keep his job or something.
Oh,
so yeah, I think LaShawn Williams pretty real.
Pretty real. All right, very exciting. That's all I had. Did you have any this week?
No, I think I put Castellanos and Salter. No, I put Monungai and Castellanos. Okay.
You put something. In there. Okay. All right. It is time, my friend, for the somewhat inaptly named 5 plays and 5 stats.
Yeah, you put 3 stats in the.
I put 5 stats.
Sheet. You put 3 stats originally, so I put 3. Anyway, we're watching like 12 plays, and there's 5 stats, and
you know what we should call it?
Happening.
We should call it some plays and some stats.
Yes. Okay, I'm on board with that.
Anyway. So this week, and I know we've talked about him at length already, but I kind of wanted to, I had the Sanders.
He's the most polarizing guy there is. I think it's important to talk about him.
Important to talk about. So we're going to talk about the Colorado offense, mostly about Shadeur Sanders. We didn't want to be too broad in this because we don't want to make it a 30-minute segment. So, all right, I'm going to read the stats first. So here's the stats. pressure to sack ratio, 28.3%. So that means 28% of the time that he's pressured, Shadeur Sanders has taken a sack thus so far. That is a bottom 25 number, essentially among starting quarterbacks in CFL. Five sacks a game for Shadeur Sanders through 3 games. Big time throw percentage, 4.7. 4.7% big time throws. That is 56th in starting quarterbacks from the 24-25 classes. I got 2 other stats for you. These aren't Shadeur Sanders stats, but they're fun stats. The guy that I like a lot that I think is helping Sanders succeed, 2.46. That is the yards per route run for Xavier Weaver through 3 games. 5.5 yards after the catch per reception for Xavier Weaver. So painting a little bit of a picture here, right? And I'm less out on Sanders than Kyle is. I'm kind of, I think, in the middle. I see the assets and I see some deficiencies. I think the deficiencies, for the most part, are things that he can work on, but certainly things that I made it go away. Certainly things that he has to work on if he's going to succeed in the next level. Does he get drafted no matter what? Yeah, but and I think he gets drafted. I think he gets drafted highly no matter what. Just the hype train is real for sure. So let's watch some football. Cool. And Kyle, if you want to talk about anything, stop me. I know I'm a motor mouth. Just hop right in. So we get some plays here, and a lot of the plays that we chose to look at today really have to do with Sanders under pressure, Sanders rolling out of the pocket, and then some of his really nice throws too. This first one, and this is Kyle and I watched this a couple of times, and we're like, why does he roll out here? So he steps up, kind of evades up instead of just stepping up. And that's just one of our big knocks on him, is we like to see him step up. And then he rolls out. And Kyle's immediate question is, how tall is he? Did he have a hard time seeing over the lineman, or is he just more comfortable getting out of the pocket? Did he need to get out of the pocket? And you see this from him a lot. Like he seems to be more comfortable rolling out. And yeah, sure, a good coordinator can play to his strengths. A lot of his skill set seems to be that of a pocket passer, though. It's his accuracy, his timing that I like a lot. I certainly like the escapability, but I think a lot of it doesn't work at the next level. And this is when the escapability goes wrong. This is something you think you'd just you'd like to see him just get rid of this. You know what I mean? I love the agility. I love that he can get away from so many tackles, but I don't think he's got the athleticism that he's going to need to do that at the next level. He's not Patrick Mahomes athletically. He's not Josh Allen athletically, right? So here's one. Again, he starts drifting out of the pocket. Why is he drifting out of the pocket there?
If he doesn't drift, that defensive end is not coming back right behind him. His tackle can stay kind of in between him, but he drifts, and then that defensive tackle gets free because of his drifting.
Exactly. So this he kind of escapes the bad situation he created for himself here, but you feel like the pressure is a little bit of a self-inflicted wound here. And, it's really cool that he can dodge all these tackles and still, nothing really happens. He could have just thrown the ball away and really gotten the same net result. And again, I think Kyle and I are both looking at that saying, NFL defensive ends, you're not, that's a 10-yard sack in the NFL, right? Yeah. That is significant lost yardage. But, that doesn't freak me out. He'll take some sacks in his rookie year. He'll get murdered. And I think
if he's taking a sack on 40% of his pressures, he's not going to survive.
I think he gets coached out or he washes out, but I think he gets coached out. This I thought was a really nice pass, nice touch, nice timing on it. We don't want to just bash on him. I think he's got some really nice attributes as a passer. I don't think he's got the most powerful arm, but I think he does make up for that with timing. And again, here he starts ripping the ball. That's he's who's that? Jimmy. That's the other kid, but Tavares Dawson is just wide open there. But he puts the pass in the bucket. It's a nice throw. A couple other really nice throws in this film too. I put this one in. I think like a little bit trying to stick up for him. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a reason why he gets the happy feet, and it's this. It really gets like his center becomes a weapon with which he is assaulted, right? This is tough.
Is that his center or is that his halfback?
Oh, the tackle.
It's the running back.
Oh, it's it?
Yeah. Needs to chip. Needs to get down.
Oh. Well, dude, that's Dylan Edwards. What are they doing putting a 170-pound guy chipping a linebacker? Anyway.
You gotta hit him in the knees. You gotta take him out.
Yeah, go for the chop block. But so another one, and he has an okay time to throw here. It's not like the ball snapped. There's pressure in his face. This is 2.5 seconds. And again, he gets away with the stiff arm, the scramble. This is what I like. This is a nice throw under pressure. It's Hunter. Hunter's pretty wide open, but still the foresight to keep your eyes down the field, the ability to make that throw on the run. Like, these are nice traits that I like. These are some of his big assets for me.
Yeah, he makes that throw on the run, but he doesn't make it in the pocket.
To make it in the pocket.
It's like he likes to throw on the run.
Likes to throw on the run.
Yeah.
This is another one, just pressure in his face. This one he hangs back in the pressure, throws it. Kind of like, you can see more of that from him. It kind of looks like he has to load up to get the ball there, but
yeah,
he gets the ball there. A couple other plays here for you. It's
rolls
another
out
nice,
to the left again for no reason.
Rolls out to the left for no reason, right? Like, not even really. Oh, look, the kid coming through the middle.
Yeah,
but
he's on his face.
Yeah. So I think for me, I feel kind of like, there may be some reason he has a happy feet, but like, that's the thing. That time he kind of like, I feel like here you step up in the pocket, right? Like,
yeah. And this is against like Nebraska, who like sure they have some guys, but
he kind of does.
He got beat up against Colorado State too. He's
part of the reason
I get beat up against these small defenses like Washington State and like Cal.
Right here. Again, I'm not a quarterback. I didn't play quarterback. I'm not saying I know better than Shadeur Sanders. I'm just saying, looks like he could have probably got rid of the ball, right here and not taken a bad sack for his team in the red zone, right? Like, it's definitely not a desirable outcome for that play. More plays for you guys here.
Throw it away.
Throw it away, right? Well, and you say that, and then he throws it, and it's almost a touchdown. But yeah, just throw it away. That was my point here. Basically, and again,
well, okay, I take that back. It's a 2-point conversion. He doesn't get another down.
Yeah, you're right. But like, the escapability is awesome. When it's working for him. I just think he's not. If he tries to rely on that in the next level, he's going to get smashed. I really think he should get drafted and sit him behind a Jared Goff. You sit him behind a Kirk Cousins, and let him learn on the bench for a year. Sit him behind Russell Wilson, right? Wouldn't Russell Wilson be a good mentor for him?
I guess he plays like he's 5'10", like Russ is.
Honestly, dude, he probably ain't 6'2". Like, he has to slide out to see around that tackle. Like, so more of the same. So I know if you guys listen to our midweek show, Kyle's pretty out on Shadeur. I'm in the middle. I think he's definitely getting drafted, and I think the assets outweigh the liabilities right now. But I don't think it's wise to ignore the liabilities either. I think he's got a lot to work on if he's going to succeed in the NFL.
I think you have to have less liabilities to be a first-round pick than how many he has.
Maybe. We'll see. Certainly a lot of people are very, 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 very high on him, including some well-known draft analysts, some talking heads, but some of them tend to be clickbaity. JT loves him. I don't think JT's a clickbait guy. I think he's sold, but I think you and I both have a little more of a data bent to what we do, and some of the data points are real rough right now and have to get better.
Yeah. And it's just like overcoming the physical limitations, adding on mental stuff isn't going to be helpful, I don't think.
Yeah. All right. On to everybody's favorite segment here, the waiver wire. Waiver wire. We should have a waiver wire sound too. Can we work on that?
Waivers.
I was thinking like a nice bell sound, a guitar. That's guitar, man. We should play the rock song. Make it happen. Do it. Do it. I got it. Waiver wire. I can use my TV announcer voice. The waiver wire.
The waiver wire. Anyway, the guys on the waiver wire.
I'll start. On the whole, what did you think of the waiver wire this week? I think it's drying up of CFF studs.
Yeah, it's obviously drying up of studs. I think that's to be expected. But I think I have like 4 that I think are still studs. Maybe 5. No, honestly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Some of these numbers are wacky
9.
On your own.
I think. Okay, I did the ownership numbers on Sunday. That's why.
No, I believe you that they're accurate, but I think a lot of them reflect CFF and not CTC, right? Like, I don't think LJ Martin is unrostered in any competitive campus to Canton I'm in.
He was like RB20 in the freshman class.
I know.
I mean, sure, people jump on the freshman quicker.
After like week 1. I grabbed him in like 4 leagues after week 1. And I'm not like some kind of super genius. It was like he was getting the drum beat. He was productive.
We're not doing this show just for C2C, though.
That's true. So
yeah, I think there's like 9. I think there's still like 9 guys I have who are CFF super relevant, and I think you have a couple too.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, before anything else, I know I'm in at least 1 league where Darius Taylor is unrostered. I probably don't have the cash to get him. I'm in at least 1 league where Gage Lardavain is unrostered. I probably don't have the cash to get him because I have blown my cash there. But, like, check to see if those guys are unrostered before you do anything else.
I'm in 1 league where Kadon Salter is unrostered, and he's only 37%.
I'm pretty sure he's taken an all mine, but man,
yeah, only 37%. So mostly rostered, but a little low still. All right, I'll start off. I got 2 tight ends for you, and I think these are my priority ads of the week because the tight end position is drying up, and these 2 seem to be top 5, kind of locked in. The first of which is the one of the 2 that I'm least excited about. That is Tanner Koziol, the Ball State tight end. He has been balling out with Brady Hunt out. He's still only rostered in 30% of leagues. That's usually about the cutoff for where we consider guys to be waiver assets. So if your leagues are asleep, make sure you pick up Tanner Koziol. And then at 29% rostered, Dallin Holker, the Colorado State tight end, who we mentioned having a huge game against Colorado this week, still on the waiver wire in 61% of leagues or 71% of leagues. So I would blow quite a bit of my cash on Dallin Holker. I think he gives you a huge positional advantage that's really only rivaled by a healthy Brock Bowers.
Holker's still out there in 4 of mine. Mine tend to be pretty competitive because we have open waivers or weekly, and many of them I looked. Koziol's not unowned in any of them, but Holker's unrostered in several.
Yeah, Holker's a guy who a lot of the CFF types, like Volume Pigs was on him, Jared was on him. I know I was on him. So he was drafted quite a bit, but in those leagues where he wasn't drafted, there's maybe less sharp leagues, he's probably still available.
Well, Holker's one of those guys that was in my queue in a lot of leagues, but just never kind of quite got there. But part of that's my philosophy too. Like you've seen my tight end rooms. Like I have like Lachey, Gadsden, or Bowers in like 70% of my leagues because I believe in CFF even more than in the NFL. It's elite tight end or bust. Unfortunately, this year it's just been elite tight ends busted.
Yeah, I was a Hunt Holker type guy, so
nice. Yeah, I do have some Hunt for sure. He went early in the first drafts. You could get him in the mid rounds, and the later ones I was in, you had to take him like the 4th or the 5th, which seemed a little steep for what he is, really. But so I think my top guys are Monangai. If you need running back, I think you're going to know when to play him, and he's going to have some multi-touchdown games. And really, over Monangai, over anyone else except Darius and Lardavane, it's Nate McCollum. He's not unrostered in a ton, but he certainly is in a few. Again, I know of like one of mine he is, and I don't think I've got the loot to get him. But I am going to throw the loot I have at him, I think. What kind of percentage would you put on McCollum? Like, how much are you willing to – how much faith do you have in this 1 week as the sign of things to come?
Are we talking C2C or CFF?
I mean, C2C, yeah.
Okay, do you think he's an NFL guy?
I think he's a day 3 pick.
Not that much because there's other guys I'd rather have than
at the wide receiver position. Yeah, there's a couple of guys on your list that I am a big fan of, and then Amani Bailey. We're both very high on him at this point. I think he lacks a little bit of upside, but I think he's got a really good weekly floor, and I think you're going to see his role continue to increase.
I'd rather have Bailey than Monangai. I think that's a much better rushing offense at TCU. And I think they're actually going to be able to run on the defenses they're playing against.
I just think Monangai's ceiling games are going to be better than Bailey's ceiling games.
Sure, but I don't think you can play Monangai in the playoffs. I think his schedule's too hard.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I am considering that when I'm weighing options A and B. So I think the other guy I really want to talk about was Robert Lewis. We talked about Robert Lewis twice already tonight. He's a guy that was already on my radar, already on your waiver, your radar as well. And then I think he really cemented that with just a blow-up game. I don't think he'll be unrostered in very many spots come Friday this week.
He is my number 2 wide receiver this week for waivers. So I'm right there with you. I think the signs were pointing us there before the season. I'm kind of bummed I didn't see him.
Yeah, or like week 1 for $1. Like, oh God, that's so profitable if you can grab these guys for $1 week 1. I got some Pofele like that, and it's like a free early round draft pick, you know?
Mm-hmm. My wide receiver 1, though, for the week is Colin Lacey, the South Alabama wide receiver who we talked about. I just think he sees more targets than Lewis for the rest of the season with Voisin out with the ACL. I think he's going to be the man in this offense, and I think we've seen that be very successful, whether it be Jalen Tolbert or Jared Wayne or Jalen Wayne. So very excited about Colin Lacey.
And Lacey's a guy that had some good games at Memphis back in the day, and he just never really was able to fully take it over, but he seems like maybe he's found another gear this year. And yeah, I am also very excited about Lacey. I think I might take Lewis over Lacey, but I can totally argue both sides of it.
Yeah, Lacey's a guy who I was drafting quite a bit of, so I already have him rostered in 3 of my leagues.
We had him pretty high on our big board, which I think we owe that to ourselves to do a midweek episode, one of our Thursday, Friday episodes, and kind of revisit the big board. Not so much victory lap, but like, hey, let's make some adjustments. Let's flesh it out, and let's really like look at the tool and how we did.
Yeah, for sure. And then my RB1 in C2C, not in CFF, LJ Martin, BYU, the freshman, as we talked about, 9% rostered. like we said, probably rostered more in sharp C2C leagues, but the ones without the sharps and the ones
You know what? This is shocking to me, but in my 16 C2C or whatever I have, he's only rostered in 6, and 3 of those are by me.
Oh, wow.
So
I don't think that's going to
out
last.
No, that won't last.
He's
through the
available
night.
in 2 of my 6. So.
Yeah, and most of these leagues have the ones that I'm in with, like the Austins and like those guys. He's not available for the most part, but
yeah, I mean, I have 6. He's available in 2, and I roster him in 2. So
yeah,
tough scene. My wide receiver 3/4, because I don't know what I'm doing with both these guys. Xavier Henderson is still available in 77% of leagues, rostered in just 23. He had another big week in week 3 after, a little bit of a snafu in week 2. I think this week 3 performance is more of what's to come compared to week 2. And so I'm still pretty excited about Xavier Henderson and his little connection with Emory Jones. And then at 15% owned, the other wide receiver I have in this tier is Nevada wide receiver Jamal Bell. He has been a bit of a target hog week 1 and 2. I think he was at 12 and 15, if I remember correctly. And then in week 3, he saw just 3 targets against Kansas. I think that was more of a just like Kansas keying in on him type thing. I think he is the guy in this offense, and I think he'll continue to be the guy. And he's available in 4 of my C2Cs. So that's a guy who's basically free, who's averaging 18.6 fantasy points per game and averaging like 20 something if you take out the Kansas game.
Yeah, and he is in my shoes as well for sure. Michael Harrison, we talked about him briefly before the show. Wide receiver / tight end hybrid for Colorado, obviously airing it out, and he seemed to get a lot of run this past week when Travis Hunter sadly dealt with an injury. I hope it's not that bad for Hunter. I think he's going to be back later this season. But in the interim, you might have a wide receiver getting 7 targets a game in a spread type offense that you can start at tight end, which is pretty freaking sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he will definitely fill a role for you for like the next 3 weeks before Hunter can come back. So yeah. I'm with you.
And then one other guy go ahead.
I have 2 more tight ends. It looks like you have 1 more tight end. I didn't actually write these down, but I feel like it's very important to talk about them because they're both freshmen and they're both performing very well. The first of which is Luke Haas. That's the first one I was going to go to. Haasy, or
I should be Victor lapping Haas because I think
exactly.
I'm the only person in all of Devy and C2C that was on Haas preseason.
The Arkansas tight end as a freshman has 3, 4, and 5 targets in his first 3 collegiate games. This week he turned in 4 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown against BYU. So big things to come for him, rostered in just 10% of leagues. And then, like you said, Max Clare, the Purdue tight end, rostered in just 4% of leagues as a true freshman, has target totals of 4 in week 1, 9 in week 2, and 7 in week 3. That's pretty important, I think. I think that's a guy who I want to pick up quite a bit of shares of. He's put up 20.4 and 15.25 points in the last 2 weeks. So
I see you already have Colin Lacey in Born and Raised.
Oh, yeah, of course. I drafted him, I believe.
I drafted him in a few places, but yeah. And I was going to say, we've seen Purdue tight ends do really well in CFF in the past. I forget who it was, but a couple of classes ago. Yeah, Durham was great for a couple of years. I think even going back further, there was other guys as well. But yeah, I think there's a lot of reason to be hyped about that kid for CFF at the very least, if not for some eventual NFL future. I mean, you don't know anything about a tight end until you know how athletic he is, and I don't think we have that information, but certainly reason to pay attention at this point in his career.
Mm-hmm. You want to do your last couple here?
Yeah, so the other guys I had was Lewis Brown, who is the wide receiver 2 for Colorado State, right? Lewis Brown, that was
I think it's Louis Brown,
Louis
and
Brown.
he's the wide receiver 3.
Who's the wide receiver 2?
Justice Ross Simmons. Just didn't do very well this week, but has been the wide receiver 2 through weeks 1 and 2.
Right. Well, this kid is a
week 1
sophomore. Yeah, either
redshirt.
Yeah. So, anyways, this kid's younger, kind of prototypical size. I could see him having an increasing role, and then also, like we both said, mostly my takes are C2C, and Horton is certainly moving on after this year. He's going to get drafted, so a lot of room for Louis Brown in the future to really build on what he's doing this season. And
he had 10 targets this week and caught all of them for 131 yards and a score.
Yeah, so pretty nice work. And in his worst week, in his first week probably starting for this team, 4 receptions, 35 yards. Not a bad first week of work for a sophomore. So he could be a guy that's increasing in role as the season goes on. Maybe a guy that down the stretch is doing some damage for you. And then the other one I had is Jalen Lucas from Indiana. Really explosive tight end. I'm not that amped about him for CFF.
Running back.
Yeah, running back. But the kid's been really explosive. I don't know how much I trust Indiana, but
I'm amped about him if he gets 10 targets a game like he did this week.
Right. Well, and that's the thing that I like about him, right? Is I feel like he's relatively matchup proof. When they're down, he's going to be getting targets. He's run the ball well, if not with volume. So I think there's some room for upside there with him. I'm not spending any real money on him, but he's a guy that, like, if I have some cash, I'm probably throwing $1 at just to see what happens.
He's a guy who's just a really, really great athlete. I mean, he was a All-American kick and punt returner last season, and is kind of using that skill set on the offensive side of the football now. My concern is that this offense is still kind of growing with Taven Jackson at the quarterback, and I think the end goal is not to throw it to the running back 10 times, but to push the ball downfield a little bit, try to find Cam Camper a little bit more. So I don't think this 10 targets a game are going to happen often, but they do seem to want to use that as an extension of the run game because they're not going to get Lucas going between the tackles because of his size and whatnot. So those little dump-off passes are going to be a big part of their rushing game, even though it counts as a PPR point for Lucas. So I do like it.
Yeah. And then I had one tight end as well. The one guy you didn't bring up that I like is Jack Westover from Washington. I wish I should probably pull up his stats before I bring these guys up. But
3 receptions, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and then week 1, I believe he had a really good game too. Yeah, 5 targets, 5 catches, 59 yards. So he's a red zone weapon for them. Maybe a guy that can grow in that role for them. So.
Yeah, I just thought his performance was a little fluky, so I'm not huge on Westover. I have a couple of quarterbacks real quick. Caden Salter, as we mentioned, needs to be picked up if he's not rostered in your leagues yet. Thomas Castellanos, who we talked about earlier in the show, is rostered in just 6% of leagues. He's another guy who could rush the ball 20 times a game and still be efficient. And that kind of production is great at the quarterback position. And then a guy who's going to make his money through the air and is rostered in just 1% of leagues is Colorado State quarterback Braden Fowler Nicolosi. We've talked about Torrey Horton. We've talked about Louis Brown. We've talked about Dallin Holker. The guy giving them these passes, letting them work down the field is Braden Fowler Nicolosi. I think this offense is going to be great against Mountain West teams, so I want their quarterback, especially because they're a pass-first team. And then speaking of Caden Salter and speaking of Liberty, CJ Daniels, their wide receiver 1, is averaging 15.7 points per game this season. In the last 2 games, he's had 4 receptions, 129 yards and a touchdown, and 4 receptions, 106 yards and a touchdown, with 7 targets in both those games. He's kind of a volatile type wide receiver who could catch a big play every week. If you're playing in like one of those like best ball leagues with waivers, which are like kind of starting to become my favorite leagues for CFF, I think I definitely want CJ Daniels, who's rostered in just 6% of leagues. And then at Virginia, Malik Washington has really stepped into that wide receiver 1 role after Anthony Calandria took over the quarterback job. And more so than Malachi Fields, who was like the wide receiver 1 for Tony Muskett. It seems like Washington's the wide receiver 1 for Calandria. They're going to be playing from behind all the time. Anthony Calandria looks like a pretty solid quarterback, so I want Malik Washington on my teams. I think he's pretty cheap. If you have an open spot, I want Malik Washington, who's rostered in just 2% of leagues. And then my steal of the week. I'm going to call my shot right here. Charlotte wide receiver Jack Castellanos, rostered in 0% of Fantrax college fantasy football leagues. He is a guy who has gotten the target share in the Charlotte offense. He's up near like 30% target share on the season, but they haven't been throwing the football in weeks 1 and 2. They were definitely a run-first team with a bad quarterback early on this season with Jalen Jones. In weeks 1, they threw the ball 24 times. Week 2, they threw the ball 25 times. And this week in week 3, they bench Jalen Jones. They bring in Trexler Ivy to play quarterback, and they throw the ball 41 times. This is a team that's bad on defense, not great rushing the football. They're going to be behind. They're going to throw the ball. And if they're going to open it up for Ivy to throw 41 times a game, he targeted Jack Castellanos 9 times in week 3. He caught 7 passes for 109 yards and a touchdown. I think he seems to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. If they're going to open it up and throw the football, I want Jack Castellanos. And he's available in like every single league. So that's my shot for the week. I'm going to call it.
Love it. Love it. All right, my friend. I think that's about a wrap.
That's a wrap.
You got any parting words of wisdom?
Hopefully you drafted good players and they're playing well.
Yeah.
Hopefully none of your guys throw 3 interceptions this week. Unfortunately, if you roster Quinn Ewers, you're SOL.
Ewers killing me. Could you say Quinn Ewers?
Oh, you're pushing it.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to do a midweek show again this week. Probably have a nice guest on for that one. Do some start sit. Maybe do some more like Devy content, and we'll work on that. But until then, good luck, unless you're playing me this week.